Welcome back to Creative Perspectives. I'm Brandy, a transitional life coach, and today we're going to be talking about reconciliation. Okay, first things first. Reconciliation pretty much shows your strength. Okay, it shows a strength in character, maturity, which sometimes it's hard to find in people, and sometimes it's easy. But either way it goes, when we look at reconciliation, we want to look at, first and foremost, do we really want to reconcile? Yeah. If you don't want to reconcile, oh no, that's okay. But if you're looking to reconcile with someone, just be prepared to keep your ears and your eyes open for the simple fact that your perspective is definitely going to be different than their perspective. They're going to see things through a different lens for the same incidents that you may see them. And so you have to be prepared to hear their point of view. Okay? The other thing is you need to exercise absolute honesty. If you cannot be honest about your emotions, your feelings, the way you felt in that moment, and you cannot express it and articulate it, showing respect to the other person, then it may not be your time to really genuinely reconcile. Okay? Because if you try to reconcile, you have to be very open. It's just one of those things where you need to be vulnerable to the other person, and they have to be vulnerable enough to you as well, to where you guys can really make progress. We've all had experiences in our lives where someone apologized, but the actions following the apology did not seem genuine. So we understand that just because somebody apologizes and shows a form of penance, it may not always be how they feel on the inside. Okay, so in order to genuinely reconcile, you need to have all components available, which means you need to come in with 100% honesty. You need to be prepared to hear things about yourself, that you may not necessarily be prepared to hear, or some people have a hard time due to their pride and ego being able to hear about themselves. So you have to really look at it as a self-improvement moment versus being attacked, by the other person. Okay, none of us are perfect. The other person is not perfect. And that's why if they have an issue and it's your turn to really reconcile with them, they may hear things about themselves that they may not like, And sometimes people go throughout their lives without people pointing out certain types of behaviors that could seem offensive to us in the first place. So they're walking around, like for instance, I was at the dog park and there was a guy, he came up to me and said, "Get your effing dog." Now my dog is about, I want to say 80 pounds, 85 pounds. His dog was like 7 or 10 pounds. There's a sign outside of the dog park that states 25 pounds and up. And there's another dog right next door, or a little down the pathway, for dogs that are 24 pounds and under. Okay? So when I looked at the situation, because he's been doing it according to other people for a very long time, he felt it changed the rules in the park structure. But either way it goes, it turned into one of those situations where I had to, call our local constable and say, "Hey, this guy is pretty much ruining the experience for all dog owners who are in the right park," because he wants his dog to he won't remove his dog, because that dog is terrified of the larger dogs. So when I revisited the situation the next time I came to the park, the other people apologized on his behalf, which I think, I'm not a big fan of that. I think if somebody wants to apologize, they need to be man or woman enough to do it themselves. However, I was able to get an apology from one of the gentlemen who told me I was being a Karen. And I'm like, I'm being a Karen? Because my dog is in the right dog park and the other dog is in the wrong dog park. Okay, you guys are friends, I get it, but right is right and wrong is wrong. So, but me and him, we were able to reconcile, and now we still, you know, talk, and our dogs play, and we're just back on the same track that we were in the first place. So just sometimes you can't go into a situation after it's done and still hold and harbor the same emotions that you did in the moment that you were having conflict. You have to be able to take a step back, look at the bigger picture. You know, we're all here to have fun. That was an isolated incident, and now it's time to move forward from that. Okay, so part of it was he acknowledged he was wrong. We discussed the situation. We both apologized for our parts, and we moved on and just had fun, and we were able to continue to have fun. Now that is genuine reconciliation. Okay, now if we're in relationships, you know, we have you know, relatives, friends, sometimes, you know, you might have, you know, a little discord every once in a while, but the main thing is, how can we operate in a team-oriented manner to rectify the situation? You know, I've seen, especially in the older generation, where somebody does, you have maybe like if a, excuse me, sorry, that was like, sorry, but where they don't let things go as easily as my generation or the younger generation. And that's not fact-based by no means. So that's just my opinion on that. But it makes things awkward, you know, because if two people have issues and you're part of both of their lives, then what can take place is it kind of makes social gatherings a little awkward. So anyway, let's look at some other things. Okay, so preparing to hear things. I think the hardest thing about reconciliation, and you may agree with me or you may not agree with me, is hearing things about yourself. We all want to think that we're right sometimes, but maybe that's not the case all the time. So I just, like I stated before, I would use a moment where somebody is offering their opinion or their emotions about how they feel about your behavior or you as a teaching. I call it a teaching moment, because sometimes they see things we haven't seen in ourselves, but you also have to be careful to make sure it's constructive criticism and not criticism designed to control you or control the outcome of the situation. So you got to be very careful with that. But aside from that, let's see, you have to be willing to confess your sins. Just like, you know, I'm not Catholic, but oh, Father God, all my sins that I've done. I like to play a lot. So you have to be willing to confess your wrongs to the person that you care about. And what that does is it shows them that you're disarming yourself. If you go into a reconciliation not disarmed, then I won't say 9 chances out of 10, but you may not even put yourself in a position to offer reconciliation. And you can also make it a defense for the other party involved. So I would say, make sure you're disarmed, meaning when you go into it, have no expectations, no agendas, don't pre-script what you're about to say, just kind of let the conversation flow, have an exit strategy, just so, like, say if you're ready but the other person's not ready, and they want, you know, their conflict resolution style is different than yours, then just give it some time and just say, okay, today might not be the great day for us to do it, but let's try some other time, you know, and then that'll allow each person to go to their separate corner and figure out, you know, hey, are we ready? Are we not ready? And that could definitely work. I mean, some people, I've heard stories where people go years and years and years, and as even relatives, and it's like, you have kids, they have kids, and because they don't get along, you're missing so many years of these beautiful babies that have nothing to do with your conflicts' lives. And it really can cause harm and damage to the family structure, you know. So disarming and confessing your position, what you put into it, what you contributed to the circumstance, whether it's on multiple accounts or a singular account. Another thing is, we always talk about apologies. Apologies, they really need to look genuine in this situation, depending on the offense. You know, everybody has different issues that they've undergone with people, and just an apology goes a long way sometimes. And the humbleness within that apology can definitely make a change for the better. Okay. Let's see, I took some notes, so if you see me looking down, it's because I took some notes. If I don't take notes, I'll start wondering, like, Brandy, get back on topic. So that's one. Now, if you're trying to mend broken relationships, it may take time. It may definitely take, it could take years, depending on how controversial the topic was, or the situation was, or the incident was. So sometimes people just have to go away for a little bit, relax, think about it, process it, and then come back to it. So, case in point, it's probably not the best or greatest example. There was a little violence involved with it, but I remember I was in Iraq, and there was this guy, I thought he called me a B, you know, and he said it, but he, anyway, you know, yeah. So anyway, I was just walking by, he was he was a mechanic, and, you know, they fix the vehicles that are broken down in Iraq, and, you know, get them prepared to go back on the road. But I was just walking by. It was just one of those days where, you know, you have a lot coming at you. In Iraq, good and bad, you know, but the environment itself, you're just wanting to come home anyway. So, but anyway, I heard the word be. God bless his soul. I strapped, at that time I was like 120 something pounds, so I strapped my weapon, you know, to the back, and I walked around the motor, I want to say motor, how can I say this, like the motor port, I'll call it a port. And I went into the freezer and got one of our large, I believe ours is like 32, iced. They keep all the water iced because it's so hot there to where they can melt pretty easily. So I just grabbed one of the water bottles, and then I had my weapon strapped towards the back because I already knew what I was going to do. So I got within close range because I'm not that great at throwing. So, but I'm strong. I was strong, but just not that good at aiming. So if I want to go right there, it might go a little over there. No, but if I shoot, it's going to go right there, you know. So, but as far as throwing, you know, it might be off a little bit. So I got as close as I could, and he was sitting on the concrete, you know, on the curb. We could call it a curb, but sitting on the curb, and I launched it full, and I, you know, hit him in his face, and I just remember. He got up fast, you know, he was huge, you know, larger than my size by a lot, to include his height, his weight, everything. So I was like, holy shit, he's about to kill me. He's about to kill me. So anyway, the other guys, you know, grabbed him, you know, and, but once they got a hold of him, because I wanted to make sure they had a hold of him. So I tried to get all big and bad, and I went up to his face and I was like, don't you ever call me that again. And then I walked away. Next thing I know, oh my gosh. Next thing I know, we were all the sergeants were called into a meeting, and we had to get in a, formation, and we lined up, and I could see him. It's like an L shape because it was indoors, so it was like an L shape. So I could clearly see him, and he could see me. So I injured him, because remember it was an ice bottle, and I went full blast, and I was pretty close. So they knew I did it too, because all of the leadership, they kept, coming up to my face and then going back, so I just kind of kept looking straight, like, I don't see you, you don't see me. And then I remember I looked over, at him, and he looked over at me, and I thought he was going to finally give me up, because all they wanted was my name. Like, who did this? Because we about to bury your career. Your army career, you about to go out there and you about to be shoveling stuff forever, and and all these duties, feel great, article 15, all this stuff. So anyway, our reconciliation was, after a couple of weeks. Now remember, in Iraq, it's not like we know our time, like, 2 weeks later, or that, because it's like you're stuck there. So it's like being in a prison where you can't go nowhere anyway. So time just goes, and you don't really want to know the time anyway, because that'll just mark down the lack of days that you're going to be returning home. So anyway, I was finally in, at that time I wasn't working at the SSA, I was working in the, they call it U-Picket yard. So it's like a horrible setup, but it's like supplies that were just being dumped in pits and left there by units. So some people would go and recover those items, put it in the U-Picket yard, and then the soldiers needed, or units needed random things, we can distribute them to them and then log it, as a retrograde product. So anyway, I was in my office by myself, and think of it as a shipping container. So we've all seen, what do you call it, semi-trucks. So think of it that way, where it's a big old semi-truck. So with a cutout, so there's a door in the front, and then you just have the AC unit in the back with a tiny cutout for the window in the back. So you have a two-way exit just in case, So I was there by myself, and he came into the doorway, and he takes up the whole door. So I was like, oh my God, he's about to whoop my ass for what I did to his face. He waited until I was by myself. So no, it wasn't. So I was like, uh-oh. So he stepped foot, inside the container, and it's narrow as well, because we have a work area, and then our computer, at the back, and it's hard. Anyway, so he came in and he apologized. He was like, Sergeant, I didn't call you a B. I said you were acting like a B. So since I knew he was remorseful, I was like, well, you shouldn't be calling anybody a B. So anyway, that was the end of that, encounter. And then we went on about our merry ways, and we didn't have too many issues, after that. I just told him I think he's a bully. He bullies soldiers, and we all want to go home, and that's just his style. His leadership style was like being a pit bull, but then he'll have like a soft side. But then when he gets into like a little tangent, then he'll go off on his little soldiers. So I was like, man, this dude, was something else. But, but my leadership style was different. So we had two different leadership styles that just kind of clashed with each other. So anyway, that's my story on reconciliation. I hope you got something out of this. If anything, just, remember, be humble. When you're humble and you are ready to reconcile, it works out really well. But just make sure you have the component of coming in, being honest about how you feel, how you felt when the person did what they did, and say it in such a way to where you can get them to understand, okay? Because it's not about my way of saying it, it's the way of, how the other person might interpret the way you say it. So you have to be careful, and part of that is just, if you have to reconcile with somebody, I would assume you know who they are, and you've learned their style and their behavior of how they respond in certain situations. So if you know them, then you can kind of know how to kind of maneuver with their style, because everybody has a different style, a different love language, a different just different. They're different love languages, different life experiences as well. So I hope I helped you today. I'm so happy to be back on camera. It's been a while. Stay blessed. God bless you. I always post some of the Bible verses, in it. And if you're on the brink of divorce from a partner, and you really want to work it out, the only thing I could say is, it takes work and work. I got divorced, and I was excited. I mean, I was happy about it. I had a son with the person, but the situation just wasn't idea. So, but some people have it to where it is idea, and they could really work together, but it's the little things that are being maximized so much to where they lose sight of each other through the process. Especially like if they've been married for a long time, because that's a long time to dedicate, right? You've been married 10 years, or been with the person 10 years, 11 years, and then now you're like, I hate that person, I want a divorce. So I would just say, if you do want to reconcile, it starts with humbleness, and it starts with your willingness to want to change certain things if they're doable and fixable, and be flexible with your partner, and then don't have a time frame. Sometimes we try to put stipulations. Okay, if they don't do this in 2 months, then screw this. Nope. Take the control out of the situation. Listen to your partner. Use a notepad, notebook, just so they can see that you're really trying, and understand, if their concerns requires you to change drastically, can you really do it, or can you work with it, or can you guys compromise with it? And that's a start. Can we compromise? Can we come and have a genuine interest in what our objective is far as our reconciliation? What's our time frame? What's our time frame for a reconciliation? Okay, do we need a time frame? Can we work through this? And a lot of people, just because you are with someone, sorry, that's my dog. She's laying on my box. There's a box with educational materials from when my son was younger, from homeschooling him. So anyway, if you know each other, it might require a little bit more patience with your partner, because I know, just sometimes your partner can frustrate you if you're in a long-term marriage, and because the routine is kind of ingrained and their behavior is ingrained, and sometimes your tolerance changes, for them, and it might be very short. But I believe you can definitely work with that. The more you know each other, I always felt it's easier to work with that, but it's not so simple, all the time. So you definitely might have to just write out a list, sit down and talk, and sometimes taking a good vacation might help as well to get away from it all and just spend quality time with each other. And I could tell you some of the cruise lines, especially for some people who are more financially no, I won't use that word. Those who are more financially challenged, they offer same as cash financing like Carnival Cruise Lines. And you could take your partner on a very short vacation. And the cool thing is, you don't have to cook, you don't have to clean, and it just maximizes your ability to have fun. And there's lots to do on the ship. There's lots of participating events. that they hold, and it could do a lot of work to help you remain married. Okay, so that's all I have to say. If you're in a relationship, same thing. If it's a friendship, same thing. You could spend time with the person and figure out something to do. You could go on a hike, a day trip. You could have the fun first and then talk about the issues afterwards, because sometimes bonding before talking helps. So, and make sure you have a positive attitude going into it. Don't have the dread, because that means as soon as you have the dread, it means that your mind is probably not going to be in the right spot to be open and disarmed to be able to have that conversation. All right. Bless you. God bless you. God, smile on you. I just will be doing a general prayer about this. And I hope this helps someone. Okay. Bye.